Not very democratic, is it, to try and deny the people of the UK, including the Scottish people, a yes-no vote on staying in Europe?
Well, we put forward a reasoned amendment which said that the referendum should allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, that people of all European nationalities should be allowed to vote, that Scotland's rights as a nation would be respected, and that the vote shouldn't take place on the same day as the Scottish elections next year. All very reasonable, constructive things to put forward, and a listening government would have accepted our amendment. They chose not to, so we voted against.
Yeah, but the fact remains you voted against the principle of the referendum taking place. I agree that you'd like to have amended it at the margins, well, but every other party, the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, Conservatives, say give the people a choice.
Yeah, but unfortunately you gave the vote on our amendment. That's the vote on our amendment you just read out.
Yeah.
No, we voted against the bill because we went to the general election in Scotland saying there shouldn't be a European referendum in the terms proposed by the Conservative Party, and we received an overwhelming mandate from the Scottish people for that, and actually over 80% of people in Scotland in this general election a few weeks ago voted for parties who were against having a referendum in these terms. So we were staying faithful to the electoral mandate given to us by the Scottish people. Other parties can speak for themselves.
But what, in principle, is the reason for not having a referendum?
Oh, but, well, in principle, you have referendum when you have something to propose, to honestly propose.
Stay in and out of the EU.
No, that's not what's being proposed. Well, let me finish the point, Adam. If you've got, if you believe in Scottish independence, and that's what you're proposing, or if you believe in Scottish devolution or Welsh devolution or proportional representation, and you say that's my proposition, can you get backing for it through the sovereignty of the people? That is a proper referendum. But nobody believes the Prime Minister wants to withdraw from the European Union. He's actually proposing a referendum about something he doesn't want to do, not about something he does want to do. That's why there's an internal contradiction at the very heart of this referendum process. And that's why, for example...
But that's exactly what the government did in Scotland. The government wanted to preserve the Union, but the question was...
No, sorry, the government down here didn't run the Scottish referendum.
Well, they did. I mean, constitutionally they did. They gave permission for it to take place, which made it
I don't want to
binding.
spend an entire interview correcting you, in fact, but what happened was the Scottish Government were given the powers to hold the referendum. I remember this. I was First Minister. We held a referendum on a proposition of Scottish independence. I was in favour of Scottish independence.
The proposition now is should the UK stay in
No, that's not the proposition. The proposition on the ballot paper, sorry, it isn't. The proposition on the ballot paper is to stay in. Is not to change, not to withdraw. Haven't you read the question, Adam? That's what I'm saying.
But the consequences of voting no would be that the UK would come out.
You asked what our point of principle is.
I don't understand it. Maybe I'm being thick tonight.
Right, well, I couldn't possibly comment. You might say that. But the two things are, one, we have a mandate from the people to oppose the referendum in these terms, and secondly, I don't believe it's a proper referendum for somebody to put forward a referendum to see off UKIP, to pacify his own party, when he doesn't actually believe in withdrawal. He doesn't believe in the proposition that people are getting the chance to vote on. Now, what I think would be of some interest to your viewers tonight might be to know that I think it's pretty clear that the government doesn't have a majority to force through what they've been suggesting over the last few days. They might hold the referendum on the same day as the Scottish and Welsh elections. I think that's devastatingly clear. And secondly, there's widespread concern, I think majority concern in the House of Commons, not to allow the suspension of Purda, of Papera, of the rules of referendum.
The substantive motion was passed by a majority of 491, and it wasn't far off for the your motion either. And you were trying to say they shouldn't hold it then. So.
Yes, well, I'm saying to you now, Adam, and you can bring me back
in
if I'm wrong.
Hasn't got a majority. I'm just saying, where's the evidence?
Well, you should have sat and listened to the debate as I did and talked to the people who are putting it forward. I'm saying it looks to me like there's a majority in the House of Commons who are against holding this referendum on the same day as the Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish elections. That came from speakers.
The government's not saying they're going to do that necessarily.
Well, the government wouldn't rule it out, Adam, and that's why I'm saying if the government persists in refusing to rule it out, then they face defeat or retreat at committee or report stage. I also think there's widespread concern about this attempt to suspend the rules of holding referendum. And although I'm passionately in favour of the European Union, far more in favour than the Prime Minister is, I don't agree with governments trying to rig referendums, because we had experience of what happens in a referendum when the civil service stopped being impartial. We've had experience of what happens in a referendum when governments ignore Purda periods, as the Westminster government did last September.
Is it true, as the Labour whips are claiming tonight, that your leader in the Commons, Angus Robertson, went into the wrong division lobby and then tried to hide in the lavatory?
Absolutely no idea whatsoever, but I always treat anything...
Because I just noticed you are actually a vote down on this.
Well, let me say, what is certainly true is that the Labour Party and the Conservatives found themselves in the same lobby once again, just like they did in the Scottish referendum campaign, which is why I suspect that the latest poll today has the SNP at 60%. 60% support in Scotland.
Final question. When it comes to holding this referendum, and obviously there's a lot more to go on in Parliament and the Lords in particular, and then coming back to the Commons, but assuming that the referendum in some form comes through, will you or Nicola Sturgeon or other SNP colleagues appear on platforms with Conservative or Labour colleagues in support of staying in the EU?
I think there's no chance of a joint campaign, and the reason for it is quite simple. The reasons that we have for supporting the European Union are about what we think Europe should be doing, positive things, like Europe should be doing more in the environment, they should be helping these desperate people in the Mediterranean. The Prime Minister's case is about what Europe shouldn't be doing, and I think it would be far better if there's a distinctive Scotland in Europe campaign. So I think a joint campaign is for the birds.
That wasn't what I asked, though. I mean, we might have a joint rally, a yes rally where you all appear together. Could that happen?
Well, I doubt it, because the two cases are so different. I think it's far better to have a distinctive Scottish yes campaign. And incidentally, I don't think the campaign in Scotland should be led by a politician. I think there's plenty of people beyond politics. One of the lessons from the referendum was the engagement of people well outside the usual political nexus. I think we'll go down that road. I can certainly tell you that having, let's say, the Chancellor of the Exchequer on a yes broadcast in Scotland would go down like a ton of bricks.
You got a name for yes?
For the yes, well, the name for yes will be Scotland and Europe. But
the name to lead it.
Oh no, I couldn't possibly nominate that, even in your illustrious programme.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us.
Great pleasure.